Do you love seafood? I do. Shrimps, scallops, salmon, what a wonderful source of proteins and omega-3s, and they taste so good. When it comes to cooking fish at home, however, do you know which fish to choose? How can you tell it's really fresh? Which fish should you avoid? If you're overwhelmed by all the choices, you are not alone. Many people avoid buying fresh seafood just because they don't know what to look for. Well, no more. Our fishmonger Tommy Gomes is here to help you enjoy the benefits of freshly cooked seafood at home. He's a busy man, so let's get right to it and join him right now.
Hi, I'm your trusted fishmonger, and we're going to talk about seafood today. We're going to talk about how to choose seafood, what to look for, what not to look for, color, texture, taste, smell, eyes, the shininess of a fish. We're going to talk about country of origin. We're going to talk about fillets, frozen, trisodium phosphate treated seafood, shellfish, farm-raised salmon. We're going to cover a whole vast array of things today. How to pick out fish for your family's dinner is as simple as picking up the package and looking at it. If it's a fresh product and a fresh fillet and it's wrapped on a styrofoam plate and wrapped in cellophane, you want to look for the juices and the slimes that's in it. You also want to check the date of pack, and you also want to look at the country of origin to see, because that carbon footprint plays a big part. Also, if it's what we call a refresh product or a defrosted product, you also want to ask if it has a trisodium phosphate in it, which is a preservative, which I'm not a fan of. We're going to talk about frozen fish and how to pick a frozen product. What you want to look for again is country of origin. You want to look and see how much of it is glazed, and glazed means they take the product, they harvest the fish, they take the product, they fillet it, they dip it in a trisodium phosphate base and glaze it with water, and then they blast freeze it so it coats the fish with a glaze. So you want to look at that. That also adds weight to it, and then when you defrost it, that glaze melts into the fish. So you need to be aware of that. Also, if you can buy cry-packed frozen fillets, that's the best way to go. Try to stay away from the IQF, which is the individual quick frozen seafood that you find in most warehouse stores in 5-pound bags with a Ziploc top. If there's another option, like a vacuum packed fish, let's say you have vacuum packed halibut or an IQF halibut, me personally, I would go with the vacuum packed because it's done quicker and faster, and it's not beat up or bruised by bouncing around in a 5-pound bag. You know, when you're choosing fish, you also want to think about how you're going to prepare that fish. And if you're going to bake it, you're going to broil it, you're going to saute it, you're going to take a whole fish and crust it in salt bake in a glass pan. Whatever your preparation is, that needs to be factored into how fresh that fish is and what type of fish it is, because every fish is different. You have texture, you have oil content, you have size, and all of that needs to be factored in on how you're preparing that product. So there are multiple books out there. The internet is a great source of information. You can always look up things like how to prepare, and there's a gazillion recipes out there, and nothing beats wild Alaskan salmon. Friends don't let friends eat farmed salmon is a popular bumper sticker that you'll see up in the Pacific Northwest due to the salmon fisheries and the fishermen. The difference is you have Canadian salmon being farmed, you have Chilean salmon being farmed, you have Atlantic salmon being farmed, and all of this stuff, and it's just my personal opinion, all of this stuff was grown and harvested and developed under a microscope, and that's just not the way you want to eat. You don't want to eat genetically mutated vegetables. You certainly don't want to eat genetically mutated seafood. If you're eating salmon and you're eating it raw, farmed salmon definitely needs to be frozen first and then defrosted due to parasites that could be inside of that meat. The sushi grade is the highest quality of seafood that you can find. A lot of sushi grade fish that's coming in is a blast frozen product that's harvested on the boat, taken very good care of, and blast frozen right away. Freshness, quality, color, and taste all factors into that. You know, and when you go into a restaurant and you see salmon, everybody's got salmon. Ask questions. Where did it come from? How is it harvested? Is it farmed salmon? Is it wild salmon? And most of the time, 99% of the time, you're going to be able to tell just by the price. If it's $9.99 for an entree, it's definitely not a wild salmon. You know, another good alternative to seafood and a great value is mussels, clams, and oysters. What's the best way to know if it's still fresh, if you're not going to get sick from it, from shellfish poisoning and stuff like that? You definitely don't want to buy any shellfish that's been opened, sitting in a bucket or a bushel, if you will, and the shell is open. That's a dead shellfish. You want to get rid of that. And also, again, remember to trust your nose. Smell it. Handle it. Is it leaking a slimy substance? You don't want anything to do with that. Is there still a nice shine to the shell? Is the shell broken or cracked? Those are the things that you want to stay away from. And again, where was it harvested? How long ago was it harvested? Ask those questions. And again, when you're cooking shellfish, you know, you're making a mussel boil and you're using coconut milk and spices and all this really cool stuff. Those shellfish that did not open, when you're serving it, completely discard those. Those did not open. You don't want to eat those. They're bad. Shrimp is the #1 seafood in the world. One of the things that you want to look for, again, is country of origin. I am not a fan of the farmed shrimp. Again, read the label. Read the label, and when I say that, if there's a bunch of $20 words on there that you can't pronounce, you probably don't want to eat that stuff. People read the labels of what they're feeding their dogs and cats, but we don't read the labels of what we're putting into ourselves. And that's where it comes into education. The phosphates, all of these additives and all of that stuff, you want to stay away from. Try and buy, if you can, a 5-pound block of wild shrimp. Break that block down by defrosting it and repackage that shrimp and freeze it up into portion sizes. You know, when I talk about asking questions, it's just like buying a car or buying a big screen TV. You need to ask questions to educate yourself on if that's the best product for you. And if you're not getting answers that you feel are honest or trustworthy, then don't buy the product. In today's world, we are growing bigger and bigger, and our world is actually getting smaller and smaller. Food is very important, extremely important. It's so important that I touched base earlier that we read labels of what we're feeding our dogs and cats and our animals at home, yet we're not reading and educating what we're actually putting into our own bodies. Know your source. Know your fishmonger. Know your butcher. Go to farmers markets. Feed yourself good, natural food, and stay away from the genetically mutated foods that are coming out and actually just polluting our bodies. We're going to talk about California white sea bass. I'm going to cut a couple of little medallions here. I have our pan ready to go. Always, always have your pan nice and hot, a little bit of oil in there. We're going to take these little medallions. This is a locally harvested fish in California, very sustainable. And what sustainable means to me as a fishmonger is sustainability means to me the harvesting of good, healthy stocks in a non-destructive fishing practice method, which does not harm the habitat with minimal bycatch. And if that bycatch happens to be marketable, more power to the fishermen. So we got this stuff going in the hot pan here. You can smell that cooking up. I'll go ahead and get a little knife here. I'm just going to flip it. Bring it back up in the range of the camera. It's cooking right along. There we go. You can see how this cooks up nice and white. Very, very flaky, very cool. I'm going to shake it up a little bit. I'm going to add just a little bit of lemon pepper in there. A little bit of Italian seasoning. I like sea salt because it's fish. Sea kind of goes together. But what I don't like to do is I don't like to add a lot. So I'm just going to take a little pinch of it and just sprinkle it on there. And there we go. So there you have it. A little bit of California white sea bass. Very cool product. See if we can plate this up for you. I'm going to take a little bit of this pesto. Just going to slap it on there. We're going to flavor that up. And here you go. Nice and easy, simple dish. Only takes a couple of minutes. And there you have a beautiful snack for you and your family. Eat healthy, eat right, eat more fish.